TV transmitted worldwide online from London. And my guest today is Ogbeni Dave Ajiboye. He's from Nigeria, and we hope to again examine some other topical issues which are very important to the current trend in Africa, with particular references to the various countries. Today we are going to look at the events that have been happening in Nigeria and what has occasioned it, and what solutions we believe should be adopted in solving them. I hope you all join us. If you have questions, you can reach us on this number, +44 7863 +44 7862 037424. I repeat, +44 7862 037424. I welcome my guest. Once again, I want to hear from him. He's in Lagos on the home ground, and let us know before we go on with our discussions. Just know an update from him.
Thank you, sir, for the privilege. I've always said that each time we have opportunity to gather this at this platform, it's always an opportunity. Yet again, it's an opportunity. And I thank you most profoundly for it. Well, between yesterday and today, we had a development. On Saturday, while APC were attending their conventions, as it were, yesterday, the train connecting Abuja to Kaduna was attacked by the same hoodlums who went to attack the airport. And somehow we are told that the train was attacked, and but there were no casualties, that everybody was rescued alive. But that is the update, and it tends to add to what we had in Saturday and giving us the impression that it looks like these bandits are upping their game. And probably where it is coming from is a question to be left open, and probably provide answers between you and I, sir. So that is the latest I can brief you with as far as Lagos, Nigeria, or Nigeria as it were, is concerned.
Well, that gives me an insight into the other points that I have gathered. There's a time this same so-called railway, the network system was running out of fuel, diesel electric, and so it got stalled on the way, and they have to go and look for fuel to fire it. Unfortunately, a lot of these things borders on one key issue. Is there any willingness for the people in governance to actually think of the people in terms of development?
Well, let me just chip in that the reality is that there is a major disconnect, not just a disconnect. There's a major disconnect between the people and the people, and the people in government. The reality is that everything that the government does must take into account the people for which they represent, they claim to represent. Measure anything. In the last 1 month or thereabout, we have had electricity collapse more than 3 times, and even now it is still epileptic. What is it that actually points to the people? Nothing. In about a week ago, about 100 and something people were killed in South Carolina. There was no mention of it in the media. It just passed as if nothing has happened. So, for me, There is nothing connecting the people and the government together as far as we now in Nigeria. My take, sir.
Do you mean the major media do not report all these macabre events that is happening all over the place? How do we now get to know about it? Are we dependent on social media all the time?
Let me be point blank about this. Sometimes last year, there was a deliberate and a specific instruction to all the media houses in Nigeria that all these killings, all these attacks, all these things that are happening, that we should not beam satellite on it any longer. So much so that anybody that does so will be sanctioned. And we have seen some of those media houses that for one reason or the other, they had us to beam satellite on that and they were sanctioned. That's the reality.
Well, it looks like we are not really running a democracy. It's become a dictatorial system bordering on feudalism.
There is absolutely no.
And this is one thing that we believe on this platform we have to discuss and let the people know, so that people will not grow up in darkness and keep on living in fear all the time, and then assuring them that they have the power of sovereignty. They put these people in power, and if they now refuse to do the same likewise in the future, might be some changes, and so maybe some roots to really sitting down to redefine relatedness between the different peoples who have been put into a Nigeria as we know it, and which is the major cause of the problems. Well, one of the things we are going to chat on today.
Let me just add.
You were trying to say something. Yes. Please, can you add?
I just wanted to add that all these things that are happening, there's a general notion that there are some that this government or the people in government knows about all these things, and the evidences people are pointing at are the fact that this particular people is a particular set of people, and in all that has happened, no one, and I repeat, no one has been presented and prosecuted. And just opposing with the likes of Nnamdi Kanu and Sunday Igboho, who we have not seen directly kill anybody, but they are being prosecuted. So people try to liken this situation to the notion that there is this unspoken or whatever maybe notion that some people are out to actually conquer the entire space in Nigeria and probably provide a cover for them under one particular religion. That is the notion.
I think from my investigation from over the years, I think I can place a very clear definition, not only definition, a very clear path to those who are doing this. It's recorded from reports and from historical documentation from the 1807 and up to now. The attempt by the Fulani marauders who took over Gobert, which is now Gobert, the capital of the Hausa kingdoms, which is now called Sokoto, that they want to take over all the lands of the people that are not their own land. They tend to call us infidels, those of us in the southwest and southeast and the Middle Belt and in the forest region of West Africa. Because when we look at these things, the narrative currently reflects on the past. It's a copy of the past intent. And because along the line we have come across a situation whereby we've been put into or stitched together and called by the name of a country, Nigeria, and some others called by the name of countries, Niger or Dahomey and all others. Remembering what we chatted on yesterday from the speech of the ambassador to United Nations from Kenya, you find that the African can know no peace. There will be the pretense, a lull within, like some countries, they have a lull of peace, which could break out into mayhem at any point, particularly when election times are coming in such countries. And until the African addresses that stitching together of a people that don't have anything in common, I want to remind myself, I'm speaking English language, I'm not an Englishman. But on this platform, we want the world to know that there's a big problem in Africa. That might even be worse than the problems we are currently in the contemporary times experiencing in Europe. That is the Russian-Ukraine thing. The problem in Africa is big, but it can be solved if we all agree that the stitched together countries have to go their separate ways, so that the people who now find themselves in their new land spaces, which already existed before, we only stitch together with others. It's like a piece of cloth of different colors put together to make one. That is what most African countries are. They're not the same people. And it's unfortunate that we are going through this path in trying to make a meaning of such stitched together countries. And that's why, like my guest said, there's a disconnection between the government and the people. And if the people are not part of the government, then they have a right of sovereignty to decide to say that they do not want to have that kind of representation. And a call for a sovereign national conference would be the ultimate goal, whereby people would decide where they want to belong. This call has been veiled. It has always been there, right from before independence. It never gave the chance for that call to be answered. And lives have been lost. We've been having low intensity warfare and a major warfare during the Biafran War. One of the most notable low intensity one was when in 1953 the representative of Action Group in the name of Akintola, Chief SLA Akintola, went to the north, to Kano, to campaign with the people for independence from Britain. He was not allowed to land because the people said they don't want to have anything with what is called Nigeria. Their leadership have always said it. But it was our own people that have forced Nigeria on every other person. That's our own people, particularly the Yorubaris, particularly the leadership of the Yorubaris, those of them who were the first front-runner English-speaking Yorubas, like the Herbert Macaulays, and like all the others, SLA Akintola, the H.O. Davis, and Awolowo, and his team were very interested in having in Nigeria. Even though they were very much interested in developing the area, which they did, but they cannot replicate what they did in Yoruba land in other people's land who do not want it. All attempts to do it have failed. And even what we achieved in terms of development in Western, they had completely been destroyed free health service, free education, industrial development, agri development, scientific aspect of innovations into agriculture, road building, infrastructural development, electricity. Where are we now? And I know my guest in Lagos are living through the pain of either running to go and get his generator to work or hope for the electricity power system to come on for a few minutes.
Well, that's very much, sir. The reality is that for this reality, this independence, or the recognition of these countries as it were before independence, I'm talking about the indigenous people, the indigenous countries that we had before the European came and created justice within our bloc. There is a voice now that is growing louder. Part of this is what we are doing now. The consciousness of people have now been aware about the reality of it. Not only because we are speaking about it, but because the reality on ground is pointing and actually making that almost unavoidable. I mean, we spoke about, on Sunday we spoke about inflation. We talked about rising price levels. We talked about wastages in petroleum and all that things. We spoke about how hard it is for an average even Yoruba man who either to have always been, doesn't even care about government. Because an average man, he provides his own electricity, provides his own water, provides almost everything. So they hardly want to talk about government. When they talk about government, they are less concerned. But the reality now is that some of those things are going out of, and they now forced to see what the government, now to take interest in what the government is doing. And that is why I said this uproar that is growing. Fact is that we cannot have the original Nigeria that we used to have. I'm talking about 1979, the 80s, and even the 90s. There is that growing quest and that demand for that debate. And I know that it's a question of time. All over Africa, the reality is that we are going to return to that old countries and empires that we used to have in one way or the other. My take, sir.
Yeah, I like what your last take on the discussion. Very importantly, there's a reawakening all over Africa now about this. Even though a few people are using the major media to try to suppress the truth is already there in the open. And I'm happy a colleague in East Africa, Dr. Professor PLO Lumumba, he got his name as a result of an inspiration of what we call the crisis of identity and the crisis of a vision. The crisis of identity represented by PLO, and then the crisis of a vision represented by Lumumba. So that we will discuss at another time. I don't want to open that because it's going to be a long one. He also had said that the old ancient ancestral countries, the kingdoms of the past, should be the basis for development in Africa. That the people have a common vision to development and dream and language so that Africa can develop its own knowledge base to integrate with the international one using their native languages. Just like the Japanese, the Chinese, the Singaporean, the Malay, and all other Southeast Asian countries have successfully done and used to promote their industry, science and technology that are at par with what we call the first world. They are already in that. So,
yes, I just want to say that the road to establishing these older empires as countries, I mean, it's the goal really, and that is what will eventually happen. But the road to it is very rough. Why? Because the people that hold political power, even though they are part of the same people, they do not want to let go of those spec of office or the advantages they have or the relative relevance that they have to give room for these countries to emerge naturally. And so what you have now, aside from the Europeans that we tend to blame, the crisis is between us, the leadership and the people. I just mentioned the other time that there is a major disconnect between the people and the leadership. The leadership is interested in keeping the status quo and keeping the resources and advantages that accrue to themselves. So it is that of self that seems to override the interest or the one we call the public interest as we speak. And so, but I know also that as time goes on, some of these things are going to change naturally because the quest for these countries is going to grow louder. So much so that it will be definite that no one else will hear any other thing other than a quest for the establishment of these countries as we spoke about. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much. You see, you've shed more light into what I have been saying, and I'm very happy for that. And in addition, we already seen the quest, the loud noise of every country within Africa, and particularly with Nigeria, which is our main focus, that you can no longer stop the people from exercising their sovereignty. But we have to make sure that we make the people understand that they have the power to do that change. And they should not always say God is going to come and do it. It is in their power. It's the knowledge base that they have. What the hell? We have been wasting our time trying to protect something that we should not protect. And for an instance, if the people understand that the people you are attached to, some of them are already proposing to have their own new republic in the nearest future, and you are there trying to protect the boundaries created for us, of which we are just part member. We are just part member of that boundary, not the whole, which has destroyed the little development we had in the 50s. The people still don't know.
Yeah,
they think we were the whole. And that is one thing we have to do the campaign to reach to the minds of the people to know. Then they will have the power to tell those they have put in power that, look, come back home, you are not representing us.
Yeah. Well,
I believe they can do it.
Yeah, I agree with you. But the challenge we have is that eventually these countries will emerge. It is when that we don't know. And the cost of doing so is what we don't know. But certainly, with the growing amount of quests that we have now, it will eventually death. But at what cost? The people that are in government who tend to protect the status quo are the ones that have the resources. They are in charge of the political power. They are in charge of everything. But the people who they are already connected with are the owners and the owners of these things we are talking about. I see that, distant future, a crisis might emerge, so much so that there will be a challenge of the political class by the people. Not just about rhetorics. I'm talking about crises that it leads to some altercation like war and killings and all that. I see it coming. It's only when we do it of this nature and then people are educated that probably we could reduce the level of carnage. But that it won't happen. I doubt it. It will eventually happen. My take, sir.
Yeah, you are really on the right path about this particular decision. I see a situation where when the people are better informed, they have the weapon because they will now realize that they are actually the ones who have allowed this political suppression of their own future to have happened by electing a people to a body that does not have any concern for them. And even when they get there, or you want to add, let me give you the chance to say something.
I want to ask is that did these people actually elect them? Or these people selected themselves? And make sure that all the infrastructure that give back to what we call the true countries or the true democracy as it were are in the hands of these people we're talking about. So it's a challenge. And I think, like I said before, it might take some time, but there's no way that this implosion will not come up. And
what I always call the dissolution of all the countries, particularly Nigeria itself, in Africa, those of them who are incongruously put together. It is when we observe them, can you imagine a country being a war since just 3 months after its independence, and it is still at war with itself up to today?
Are you talking about something?
We are lucky in Nigeria. I'm talking about the DLR and some other, even the what do you call it? Angola has just, there's a lull in the situation of Angola. The Cambida enclave is still winding up to start its own quest again, which is part of Angola, which is part of Angola, but it's not in Angola. It's away from it. It's just like talking of the old Pakistan, East and West Pakistan.
Yeah.
East Pakistan was about 1,000 miles away from West Pakistan, and you call that one country. They eventually went their separate ways. So, you see, people will always want an identity.
Yeah.
And if you keep on suppressing an identity of a people, because I don't see, but for confusion, most people who are in Nigeria currently have a crisis of identity, but it's because they cannot piece together the fact that they are actually Yorubas who have an identity to be a sovereign nation, or the Igbos, actually Igbos who have an identity of being a sovereign nation. But the confusion in the Igbo land of the idea of a Biafra is that they are now forcing other people to be part of a Biafra they want. But the moment they now change to call themselves Igbo, an Igbo new nation, everything will fall in place. Others that have been forced to be part of it, which is still a mini Nigeria, is one thing why the Biafran issue has not been resolved. I had meetings with this Kanu in London with some other group of people in those days. That look, it is not Biafra should be promoting. It's an Igbo nation. I have to mention this today because it's one of the clogs. The people in the Calabaris and others don't see themselves as Biafra because Biafra represents the old eastern region, which the British created as a region for purpose of management, not as a country and not as a nation, and which the same thing Ojukwu assumed, and some of us told him after the event that if only he had done certain things, we would not be in this situation we are now.
Yes, I don't want us to go to that area because That area is a major discussion in its own. And
okay, we'll do that.
I think
I'm sorry.
To narrow our discussion.
Yeah, thanks for pulling me back, because I was just seeing the relatedness of the crisis of identity. Yeah. That crisis of identity is there even among the Yorubas, because they think they are Nigerians. Whereas, but they will say Yoruba ni mi. But if you are Yoruba, do you have a sovereignty factor to be able to stand on your own and say you want your new country back? What are you still doing in Nigeria?
Yes. I think for me, we have done so much trying to identify all those realities around us. But I think what is more incumbent on us is for us to chart a direction that will help the people to know what to do going forward, so that the race to the actualization of these countries, as it were, could be faster. And that's what I want us to do in closing this discussion today. For me, for instance, people should be educated. You have said that. We have said that times without number. That people should understand who they are. They should understand what is possible. What is possible is what people don't know. The power that is in having a sovereignty over whatever you have. The advantages that are there. For instance, security. For instance, growth. For instance, electricity. For instance, of agriculture. For instance, so many things that will be achieved within the confines of what we are discussing. I think is what we should dissipate energy at, to ensuring that people know exactly what to do, so that this process can be faster. My take, sir.
Yeah. Do you now suggest that we have what we call a manifesto of intent that will now start to spread amongst our people, based on what we have been discussing so far? Because we'll be talking about the reality and education of our people to know the power they have, that they have the power of decision making, not somebody coming to tell them, oh, this is the next governor, or this is the next president, without their own input into saying that we will actify this man or the other man. You see, I think, like you said,
that's exactly what I was trying to emphasize on. And for me, you are eminently endowed to lead us in this direction, especially the historical perspective to it. I remember we were discussing sometime, and you mentioned, I forgot the name, something you saw that was pointing by Jebari or something like that. I've forgotten the time.
It was.
I don't know what
it represents the boundary of our people, which we call Bode, Ile Yoruba, as at the time. Our custom and excise boundary between us and the rest of West Africa, and the Malians use that pointer to travel in and out of Yoruba land.
So that's my what I think we should do, and I think we are already in that direction. So you will lead us with this historical perspective that can help our present. If people know where they are coming from, certainly they can be part of where they are going. So going forward, education about what has happened, education about the reality that we have, and education about where we are going is what we make this things faster. Thank you, sir.
So I think you readily have structured it out, looking at the past, the present, and future, which is in anything in the world today, whether in the history of history, whether in the development of science and technology. There's no way you can avoid those three aspects of nature: the past, the present, and the future. If innovations of the past helps today and decides the path towards the future,
yes,
which makes it brighter,
why I brought that up is the fact that there is a deliberate attempt to make sure that the history that we had or what has been in the past is being erased. We're trying to, put an opaque on it so that everybody will not know what has happened. We only work with what we have now into the future, and that to me will be a disservice to our people, and that's where you come in. Let us know what has happened. Let us connect the old times with the current one, and where to go going forward. My take.
Yeah, it's good. Sometimes it is even very, very important. The nearest past is very rosy. Was very rosy. No, I won't say it's very rosy. Was very rosy. The history of the Yoruba land or Western region between 1951 and 1959 is going to be part of the campaign strategy, or what we call a manifesto that will be distributed. Because most of our people who grew up will say Nigeria Dangbakon. I always remind them it was not Nigeria, it was Western region. And this and this was happening in Western region did not happen in the East or in the North. So they see, some of them who now understand, see the difference. That, so it means all this happened in Western region. Then let's go back to our Western region again.
That is the point.
And if the rest who do not want it,
that is the point.
Let them.
For instance,
and that's exactly.
Sorry, sir. For instance, in one of your presentations, you spoke about Oyon Dam. That Oyon Dam was supposed to provide water for Lagos, provide electricity. That is, if you put a turbine on it, it's supposed to be able to generate like 10 megawatts of electricity, which will have enough.
There's already a turbines there. It was not just allowed to work. Sorry to interrupt you. There are turbines there.
If we are educated about, for instance, we already know where to start. But very many, including myself, don't even know or can never relate with this reality that there is something that was deliberately kept back so that we cannot develop. If we knew this one, of course, everybody would now wake up and is this what it is? So we can be united in pursuing the goal of the future. And that is where I said you come in. And I want you to actually take it as very important and cogent going forward.
Well, you already hit the nail on the head properly. You are saying that we already have the tools to make sure that our people know the truth. Then the truth has to be provided and documented, which we are going to, in the next few weeks, present out in not all of it immediately because it can be boring. Just start with a few and analyze and expect that then we will promise the people that more will be coming as time goes on over a period of time. And it's going to be, by the grace of God, a continuity so that we will be able to reach out to our people and talk to them to see that they are part of the whole and the whole is part of them. And at the same time, they should not see themselves as separate persons. They should see themselves as Yorubas first. And the Yorubas who want to now start to redevelop. And to redevelop, they have to call for the dissolution of the amalgam, which is a business enterprise that has not paid us well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. I want to go with reality. But like I said before, the challenge will be between the management and the people. I'm talking management now in terms of the political class. They are united, whether Yoruba, whether Hausa, whether Igbo. They are a clique of people who are holding everybody to ransom. I'm sure they are less than 1% of our population, but they are the ones that are doing all the rest. For instance, they don't have anything to do. Or, like I said before, as we still on strike, the schools I spoke about in FCT, I'm talking about primary school that have been on strike. They just resumed yesterday. In all these things, they are not concerned. It's not part of them. Any quick thing like this, you will see all their children are all over with you in England and all over. Yeah. So they are not affected by what the average man here is actually going through. So it is incumbent on you in particular, sir, with the amount of resources you have in terms of information of what has happened, to make available to us these things. In fact, in small bits, that educate us to know what happened and know what to do going forward. Thank you very much, sir.
Thanks for the very high confidence you have in me and what little contribution I have done to trying to put into the open what has been and what ought to be and what will be. On this note, I think we have had an open general discussion, which is what I plan that we should do today. And tomorrow, we will pick on what are the manifesto basis in bits, the first things we need to do in terms of providing the foundation for a restart of our new nation. And we will start with looking at one major infrastructural development: electricity, waterways, and water supply. We'll put them in bits and it will be in parts. And then we
For me, I want us to take
and to do that, to get that, yes, okay.
Because it's immediate relevance, I want us to take electricity first.
Okay.
I have heard you talk about the infrastructures that we have, all the rivers that we have. Many of us are not known to me, for instance. That you said if you put a turbine, some can generate 4 megawatts, 5 megawatts of electricity that can solve our immediate problem. So we will look at it. For me, these are priorities that we should talk about, and I want us to take that first.
Okay. On that note, I think we have to take on an electricity, and I would not want us to within the space of time, we break it up into parts.
Okay, sir.
How we want to. We look at an overview of what it is there on the ground for us, what we can do to increase it, how do we manage this to be a continuity, to be part of our contribution to the sustainable energy development in the world, and what we can add to the integrated system. And for things like water, electricity is very wide scope. The water, of which I happen to be trained and dam building. Our key statement on it is, for electricity, just add water. It means more than that. I will explain all those things. For electricity, just add water. That is our motto. In the British hydro.
I think we should just stop at this today, so that we don't unconsciously open that topic that we cannot take it far. So
yeah, it's just an overview. Thank you.
Tomorrow we just electricity thing. Then you come in with WhatsApp and the resources that we have around us. Then we can take it up from there. Thank you very much, sir.
Oh, thank you so much. Yes, you see, you already opened up my mind to looking into the big picture, which I want our people to enjoy. Yeah. And that is the information base which you want, by the grace of our Almighty God and Alale, or Jesus Christ, or Allah, whichever one our people believe in. We will get there soonest.
Thank you very much.
Because the foundation is already laid out by the incongruity and the mess that is happening, it has already helped us to dig the foundation. And if I want to say something, I always said Nigeria died in 1962. We've only put it in the mortuary, in the morgue, and we're turning it around and over without a decision on when to bury it. And that is true. The dissolution of the amalgam has stopped so far. Thank you very much for being with me today again, and I think I've enjoyed myself. I am again becoming a new learner through your presentation.
Thank you very much.
And I thank you very much. And on this note, to our listeners, this has been Alex Oluwole Ajala, your host on Cleveland TV, transmitting worldwide online. Thank you.
Thank you.